The morning after Mark's funeral, the world felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses on your chest, like grief itself is holding its breath. The scent of lilies lingered through the house, his favorite flower, though no one knew that but me. I'd ordered them myself, because who else would have known what he loved? He'd been gone only 3 days, and already I felt the world shifting, like our secret friendship, our private truth, had been buried with him. We were married for 15 years, not because we were in love, not that kind of love anyway, but because we understood each other. He was my best friend, my safe place, my partner in life's performance. He was gay. I knew before he even said it, and I loved him anyway. Fiercely, platonically, completely. Together, we built a home, a business, a life that protected both of us from judgment. We had an unspoken promise. We protect each other, always. That promise died with him, or so I thought. The doorbell rang around noon. I expected another neighbor, maybe someone returning a casserole dish. But when I opened the door, the sight before me made my blood run cold. A woman stood there, dressed in black, but glowing like she wanted to be seen. Every piece of her was polished. The sleek bun, the bright lipstick, the diamond earrings that screamed money. Beside her stood a boy, maybe 6 years old, holding a toy truck and staring down at his shoes. "Mrs. Collins?" she asked softly. "Yes," I said, tightening my grip on the doorframe. "I'm sorry for your loss," she began. Then after a beat that felt like bait, she added, "My name is Vanessa. I was close to your husband." The way she said close was careful, the way liars always are when they're about to test how far they can go. "I see," I replied evenly. She rested a manicured hand on the boy's shoulder. "This is Tyler, Mark's son." I froze. Her words echoed in my ears, but they didn't make sense. Mark's son? Impossible. Mark couldn't have children. He'd told me long ago. And besides, he would never have kept a secret like that from me. Not him, not us. Still, I looked at the boy, searching for a trace of Mark's smile, his eyes, anything. But the child looked nothing like him. Vanessa's expression softened with practiced sorrow. "He always promised to make sure we were taken care of. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want what's fair. Half of what's his. Half of this house. Half of the house. Our house. The one Mark and I built from nothing, brick by brick, dream by dream." I swallowed hard. "Do you have any proof of what you're claiming?" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You'll find everything you need in his things. I'm sure he left something for us." Her tone wasn't confident. It was daring, like she was testing me, waiting for me to blink first. I didn't. "I'll look into it," I said simply. "And if your story checks out, we'll talk." She nodded, pretending to be gracious. But as she turned to leave, I caught the faintest flicker of a smirk on her face, a victory smile. When the door shut, I stood there for a long time, hands trembling. The house suddenly felt smaller, haunted not by Mark's memory, but by lies creeping in where love used to be. Whatever game this woman was playing, she'd chosen the wrong widow, because I'd spent 15 years building a life with Mark, not based on passion, but on loyalty. And that kind of love doesn't die quietly. I didn't touch my coffee that morning. It sat on the table, growing cold while I stared at the framed photo of Mark and me from our 10th anniversary, the one where we were laughing too hard to pose properly. Everyone thought it was a picture of a happy marriage, and in a way it was. Just not the kind they imagined. We'd met in college, two souls trying to fit into a world that didn't know what to do with us. Mark was kind, magnetic, and terrified of being himself. I was stubborn, independent, and tired of pretending to be someone else's idea of a woman. So we made a deal, a marriage of loyalty, not desire. We'd protect each other, chase our dreams together, and build something real in a world that often felt fake, and we did. Our interior design company grew from a tiny basement studio to one of the most sought-after firms in the state. We bought this house, restored it together, painted every wall with laughter and late-night takeout. Now it all felt hollow. The laughter, the walls, even the air. I thought about Vanessa's smirk, that little boy clutching his toy. Something didn't add up. Mark never hid big things from me. Not money, not people, not truths that mattered. If this woman had been in his life, I'd have known. The only secret he ever kept was who he truly loved. A quiet, gentle man named Paul, who lived 3 states away. I met Paul once, years ago. He hugged me like he was hugging a sister and whispered, "Thank you for loving him." That memory made my throat tighten. I decided to look for answers. I went to Mark's study, where everything still smelled faintly of cedar and cologne. His desk was cluttered, but neatly so, like a mind that needed order to think. I opened his top drawer and found the usual: pens, receipts, the silver cufflinks I'd given him for our wedding. But at the bottom, tucked beneath an old business file, was a sealed envelope with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter, written in his familiar looping handwriting. "Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if I know you, which I do, you're probably angry and trying to fix things that aren't your fault. I've made some mistakes lately. There's someone who might come looking for money, a woman who claims things that aren't true. Don't believe her. Please. She's not who she says she is. Everything we built is protected. The trust we set up will hold. But more importantly, promise me you'll remember what we were, not what people said we were. You were my real home, Maggie, my truest friend. Don't let anyone rewrite our story. Love, always, Mark." By the time I finished reading, tears blurred the ink. He'd known. Somehow he'd known this woman would come. I pressed the letter to my chest, my grief hardening into something steadier. Resolve. Vanessa wanted half the house? She'd have to go through me. I went to the safe under the stairs and pulled out the legal binder we'd signed years ago. Everything we owned, the business, the house, the accounts, was protected under our partnership trust. No outsider could touch it. And yet, something still bothered me. How did Vanessa know so much? How did she know to come to me instead of a lawyer? Someone must have told her. Someone close. I wiped my face, set the binder down, and whispered to the empty room, "Mark, what did you get mixed up in?" Because now I realized this wasn't just about greed. It was about secrets. One last secret he hadn't been able to tell me, and I was going to uncover it, no matter what it cost. That evening, the house felt too big for one person. Every tick of the grandfather clock echoed through the hallway. Every shadow seemed to stretch a little farther than usual. I'd lived here with Mark for 15 years, and yet for the first time, I felt like a guest in my own home. I sat at his desk again, the letter still beside me. I traced his handwriting with my fingers, as if I could pull him back through the ink. He'd warned me about her, a woman who might come looking for money, but how had he known she would? I started digging through his files. Bills, contracts, tax papers, nothing out of place, until I reached a small black notebook tucked behind a folder labeled Client Meetings. The pages were filled with names and numbers, clients, suppliers, friends. Then on one page, halfway through the book, a name I didn't recognize. V. Grant, private loan, $50,000. I froze. Vanessa Grant. My pulse quickened. Mark had loaned her money, quietly, off the books. Why? I leaned back in the chair, staring at the name. He must have known she'd use that connection to come after me. Maybe that's why he left the letter. His final attempt to protect me from whatever mess she was tangled in. Just then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mrs. Collins?" The voice was male, low, cautious. "My name's Alan Pierce. I'm an attorney representing Miss Vanessa Grant. We'd like to arrange a meeting to discuss your late husband's estate." I felt my chest tighten. "There is no estate. Everything's in a trust." He paused. "Then I suggest you check again." The line went dead. I drove straight to the law firm Mark and I used for the trust. The receptionist gave me that soft, pitiful smile people reserve for widows. She led me to a small office where our attorney, Lydia Kane, greeted me with tired eyes. "Margaret," she said gently, "I was sorry to hear about Mark." I nodded. "Thank you." "Lydia, someone's claiming Mark had a child and promised her half the house. She says he changed his will." Lydia frowned. "There's no will. He didn't need one. The trust covers everything. That's what I thought, but I just got a call saying I should check again. Lydia turned to her computer, typing quickly. I watched her expression shift. Confusion, then disbelief. Margaret, she said slowly, there is a will. It was filed 3 weeks ago. I felt my stomach drop. That's impossible. It's signed, notarized, and it names a beneficiary, Vanessa Grant, and her son Tyler. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. Mark had never mentioned any of this. I forced out the words. Can I see it? She nodded and printed a copy. I scanned the pages, and though the signature looked like Mark's, my gut screamed it wasn't. The date, the phrasing, the tone. It wasn't him. Mark was precise, almost poetic. This was sloppy, transactional. Someone had forged it. When I got home, I locked the doors and sat in the dark. The rain started again, tapping against the windows in that slow, rhythmic way that always made me think of him. Mark, I whispered, staring into the shadows. What did you get caught in? Because now I wasn't just protecting a memory. I was fighting for the truth. And somewhere out there, a woman was holding a fake will and using a child that wasn't even Mark's to steal everything we built. By the next morning, the grief had burned off into something sharper. Focus. If Vanessa thought she could rewrite Mark's story, she didn't understand how fiercely I guarded the people I loved. I drove to her apartment address, listed in the so-called will. It was one of those new luxury complexes downtown. Glass, steel, and shallow smiles. She answered the door wearing silk pajamas and surprise that didn't reach her eyes. Mrs. Collins, she said smoothly. I didn't expect... I stepped past her. You forged my husband's signature. For a heartbeat, she looked like she might deny it. Then she folded her arms. You have no proof. I have his handwriting on 1,000 documents, I said. And I know exactly how he looped his M's. Whoever signed that paper didn't know him. Her mask cracked just enough for me to see the fear underneath. I scanned the apartment. Lavish furniture, perfume bottles, a toy truck sitting on the counter. Where's the boy? With my sister, she muttered. He's real, you know. Maybe, I said. But he's not Mark's. Her chin lifted. Mark told me he wanted a child. He told me I was special. I shook my head. He was kind. He probably told you what you needed to hear. But he didn't lie about who he was. He couldn't. Her eyes flicked toward a framed photo on the shelf. Her and Mark at a restaurant. His arm draped politely around her shoulders. My stomach twisted. He looked uncomfortable. It was from last spring, during a charity event. I'd been sick that weekend, sent him alone. So that's when she'd started this. I took the picture down. You cornered him there, didn't you? You knew who he was, but you saw an opportunity. Her voice rose, brittle. You think you were the only one who mattered to him? No, I said quietly. But I was the one who knew him. She laughed, but it was hollow. He promised me $50,000, said he'd invest in my boutique. Then he ghosted me. I deserved something back. There it was, the truth. Not love, not grief, just money. So you forged a will, I said, my voice steady, and used a child to make it believable. She didn't answer. I took a step closer. You should know I already talked to the bank. Every transaction is traceable. You'll have to explain where that boutique money came from, and why you withdrew it the day after he died. Her face drained of color. I'm not interested in ruining you, I said. But if you keep pushing this, you'll destroy yourself and drag that boy with you. She looked away, shoulders shaking, and for a second I saw the real Vanessa. Young, desperate, terrified. Mark wouldn't want this, I said softly. He helped people. He didn't use them. She swallowed hard. Then why did he help me at all? Because he saw something good in you, I said. Don't prove him wrong. I left her standing there, tears spilling down her face. When I got home, I sat on the porch until sunset, the letter still in my pocket. The sky turned gold, then violet, the same colors that always reminded me of Mark's favorite tie. I whispered to the wind, I think I fixed it, my friend. But part of me knew it wasn't over yet. Vanessa would have to choose. Come clean or let her lies collapse on their own. Either way, the truth was finally cracking through, and I'd make sure Mark's name and the friendship we built stayed untouched. I didn't hear from Vanessa for a week. No lawyers, no calls, no threats, just silence. But silence from someone like her never meant peace. It meant calculation. Then on the 8th day, I got a call from our lawyer, Lydia. "Margaret," she said carefully, "Vanessa Grant turned herself in this morning. She admitted to forging the will." For a moment, I just sat there, stunned. She confessed? Yes, said she was pressured by someone else, a man named Pierce. The name made my blood run cold. That was the attorney who'd called me before, the voice that told me to check again. So Vanessa wasn't the mastermind after all. She was the pawn. I hung up and stared out the window. Rain again. It always rained when Mark was gone. Then I went back to his study, opened the black notebook again, and flipped past Vanessa's name. A few pages later, there it was. A. Pierce, consulting fee, $10,000. I exhaled, half in relief, half in fury. He'd been involved with Mark too, at least financially. Maybe a consultant, maybe something darker. And then, as I turned the last page, something fell out. A small, yellowed envelope with no name, just a date scrawled on the front. 4 weeks before the accident. Inside was a single letter, written in Mark's hand. "Maggie, if anything ever happens to me, please look for a man named Alan Pierce. He came to me last year with a business idea. I didn't trust him, but I was stupid enough to sign something without reading the fine print. He's been threatening to expose Paul and me if I don't pay up. I've made payments, but he wants more. He's dangerous, and I'm afraid he'll come after you when I'm gone. Don't face him alone. You always said I was the calm to your storm. Now it's your turn to be mine. Please don't let him twist our story. Always, Mark." My hands trembled as I folded the letter back up. All this time, I'd been fighting the wrong enemy. Vanessa wasn't the thief. She was collateral. Pierce was the one who'd forged the will, used Vanessa, and created the lie about the child to make it look legitimate. The next morning, I went straight to the police. I handed over everything. The forged will, the notebook, the letters, the transactions. By that evening, they called back. "You were right, Mrs. Collins. Alan Pierce has been running an inheritance fraud ring for years. Vanessa's testifying against him." I thanked them, hung up, and sat quietly for a while. It was over. Finally over. But the truth had left its mark. I'd thought losing Mark was the hardest part. Turns out, keeping his story safe was harder. Later that night, I walked through the house with a glass of wine, touching the things he loved. The piano, the old lamp he refused to throw out, the stack of design sketches we never finished. And then I found one more envelope, this one tucked inside a sketchbook, hidden between pages of our last project together. Inside was a single note. "You always asked what I'd want you to do after I'm gone. Here's my answer. Live. Take that trip to Greece. Repaint the living room that awful shade of yellow you love. Fall in love if you want to. Just don't stop laughing. You were my courage, Maggie." By the time I finished reading, I was crying, smiling, and laughing all at once. I walked out to the porch, feeling the cool air brush my face. Somewhere above me, thunder rumbled faintly, but for once, it didn't sound like loss. It sounded like release. I whispered, "I'll keep living, Mark, just like you said." And for the first time since the funeral, the silence felt like peace. A month after everything ended, the house felt different, lighter. The air no longer carried the weight of secrets or the ghost of unanswered questions. The police closed the case. Vanessa testified against Pierce and got probation. She sent me a letter. No excuses, just an apology written in shaky pen strokes. I never meant to hurt him or you. I didn't know who I was dealing with. I didn't write back, but I didn't hate her either. Hate keeps the ghosts alive. Instead, I focused on the one promise I hadn't yet kept, Mark's last request. The house we'd built together, the one she'd tried to take, had always been our safe haven. Every corner carried a piece of our story. But I realized it had become a mausoleum, not a home. So one morning, I opened every curtain, let the light pour in, and started painting. The living room went a pale yellow, his least favorite color, my favorite. I laughed while the first streaks of paint went up, half expecting him to appear and complain about how sunny it looked. I could almost hear his voice teasing, "You're turning our house into a banana, Maggie." Maybe I was, but for once, it was mine. When the work was done, I poured a glass of white wine, opened the back door, and stepped out to the garden. The hydrangeas we'd planted together were blooming again, deep blue this time, almost violet. His favorite color. I brought his letters with me, tied with the same silk ribbon he'd once used to wrap my birthday gifts. I sat on the porch swing, the late afternoon lights spilling over the yard, and read them one last time. When the sun began to dip, I whispered into the quiet, "We did it, Mark. We kept our promise. We protected each other right to the end." The wind moved through the trees, soft and steady, almost like an answer. The next week, I booked the trip to Greece, not because I needed an escape, but because I finally understood what he meant by live. He didn't want me to hold on to the pain. He wanted me to keep building, new places, new stories, new versions of home. Before leaving, I walked through the house one more time. Every room carried him in some small way. The smell of cedar, the sketch on the wall, the soft echo of laughter. But now, none of it hurt. It just felt like love. And as I locked the door, suitcase in hand, I looked back and smiled. The house wasn't half of anything. It wasn't something to divide or fight over. It was ours. Two friends who built a life out of loyalty, laughter, and truth. And now, it would carry one last promise fulfilled.